My name is Barbara Bunker. I'm 21. I'm from Austin, Texas, and I have a daughter named Nova Leigh who's 2 years old with Schizencephaly.
Could you tell me what that is?
Schizencephaly is a rare gray matter malformation of the brain. It's caused by in utero stroke is the best guess, but could be a number of other things. In English, it means that the child is born with slither clefts in the brain. In Nova's case, she was born with 25% of a brain, most of it being on the right posterior side of her head, and the rest is empty skull.
Do they know what caused this?
In utero stroke is the best guess.
But what caused that? Do they know?
No, that's a gray area. That's something I've never been given answers on. No doctor will sit there and tell you they know what causes it. You know, you can't find any answers on the internet. And me as a mom, you know, I've pretty much replayed my pregnancy in my head over and over again. And I can't think of one single thing that I did or that myself and other moms with children with schizencephaly did. You know, there's no common factor, it seems, to be what causes this. You know, it's you could be 50 and have a kid with schizencephaly. You know, I'm only 21, I'm perfectly healthy, and my daughter was born with it. You know, I didn't fall when I was pregnant. I didn't eat any sushi or raw fish, nothing like that. I took my prenatals, and they actually, all throughout my pregnancy, it was normal. We didn't know anything was wrong. You know, we had all our ultrasounds, and they just said everything was kind of normal. You know, apparently you'd think if your child has 25% of a brain, they'd kind of catch that, but they didn't, so.
When did you realize that your child had this?
We found out when she was, I want to say 3 months old. We took her to her newborn checkup, you know, just kind of the normal thing, and her newborn screening from when she was born had come back and her thyroid levels were off. So the pediatrician said, okay, we're going to send you to an endocrinologist, you know, just to kind of talk about the thyroid and, you know, the role it plays and your daughter's hypothyroidism. So we went to this endocrinologist, and I'll never forget her looking at me and saying, well, I'm not supposed to be able to see your thyroid from across the room, honey. And she's like, so you're sick, so you need to go get yourself checked out. She's like, so probably what happened by looking at your thyroid, what I'm guessing is that when you were pregnant, some of those hormones were passed to your daughter, and, you know, as time goes, they'll kind of exit her body naturally, and she's going to be fine. You're the one that's sick. So it's kind of funny because everyone was kind of rejoicing, even though I just found out I had thyroid problems. Everyone was so happy that she wasn't sick. But the doctor, her name was Dr. Scott, she looked at me and said, there's a 1 in a million chance that anything is wrong with your baby. But just in case, I want her to come in tomorrow morning for an MRI. And so we were like, okay. So my mom went with me the next morning, and she was very on edge and freaking out. I was reassuring her the whole time, you know, don't worry, nothing's wrong, it's Nova. You know, it's me, I'm Barbara, like, this is my daughter, of course nothing's wrong. That was on a Friday. Well, the next day, on Saturday, Joseph was playing guitar in the living room, and Nova was in her swing, and I was doing laundry in the back room. And the phone rang, so I picked it up, and it was Dr. Scott. And this was a Saturday at 3 o'clock, so it's like, you know. And I answer, and she's crying, and she told me, you know, are you sitting down? Like, we really need to talk. So I went in my bedroom closet, and I sat down on the floor, and that's when she, you know, started telling me 2 lobes in the back are missing. There's only 25% of her brain present. She was born completely blind. There's no optic nerves connecting the eyes to the brain. So it's like, she has her eyes, they look normal, but they serve no function. One of the, you know, they told me to expect seizures, but one of the biggest things is she was born without a pituitary gland, which is completely essential for human life. It creates cortisol, which literally drives people to live. If you don't produce cortisol, if it's 60 degrees outside, you go out there, your body temperature is going to be 60 degrees. You can't control body temp. If you break a bone, it could kill you because you're not producing any adrenaline. And then the things like the seizures come in. Seizures are very, very common in kids with schizencephaly, but every case is so different. I have seen kids that are missing more brain than my daughter, and they're running around. They've never had a seizure. They don't take any pills. But kids like Nova, we have a whole bag at home, which I've gotten so used to. But every 8 hours she has her pills. There is no breaks. There's no getting sick. There's no missing a dose. Every 8 hours you have to give them. Because some of these medicines, like her hydrocortisone, which replaces her cortisol, she wouldn't last a week without those medicines. But of course, as you know, the major problem thus far has been her seizures, which has just gotten completely out of control.
Yeah, when did that start getting really severe?
We knew that she was going to have seizures after about 2 months after she was diagnosed. She's 5 or 6 months old. But at the time, they were infantile spasms, which don't look like your traditional seizure. It's kind of just like twitches, and you notice the eyes rolling back. They're still seizures, but they just don't look scary. That's when she started getting put on these seizure meds, which they had explained to me. Oh, this one, it has really bad side effects. It makes kids blind. But my daughter was already blind, so she was a perfect candidate for it. So then there was that one, and they added another one, and she was seizure-free for a year. But overnight, whenever she turned 2, it really did seem to happen overnight. It went from she had no seizures for a year to, the next day I woke up and she was just uncontrollably seizing all day. And it was really weird because kids like this, the doctors will tell you they have breakthrough seizures and you just need to up the dose a little bit of their medicine. Well, that didn't work. And I was never really given an answer as to why they were so well controlled for a year and this happened. But the bottom line is since they've come back, have tried every medicine available for kids her age. A lot of what she's still on. She's still on a lot of seizure meds. But the side effects, not only are they not working, she's still seizing all day. But if we take her off these medicines, I don't even want to know what would happen. I'd like to think they're helping at least a little bit. But the side effects of these medicines, the doses can only get so high until they become lethal. Some of these drugs people are buying on the street for hundreds of dollars. It scares me that, people want to buy these drugs on the street that my daughter is taking every day. She's lethargic, she's tired. I still see her smiling and she still laughs, but it's not like it used to be. And she can't sit up by herself or anything, but at this point, even if I sit her up in my lap, it's almost impossible unless I'm holding her torso and holding her head up because she's just seizing, so she's completely limp. It's really bad. I mean, she sleeps most of the day, but even on all these medicines, even though they make her so tired, she's always sleeping, even when she sleeps, she's still having seizures. Sometimes they wake her up, sometimes they don't, but when they came back, we were put in the hospital, and that's when she had her EEG. That's when we found out she's having 24/7 seizure activity from her right posterior. So that's when the doctor said, your only option is to have a lesionectomy and a corpus callosum.
What is that?
That is splitting of the brain. That's the corpus callosum. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. They take the corpus callosum and they split it. Nova has a small piece of brain on this side and a little bit on this side, so they wanted to split it in half. And then they wanted to take out what was on her right side. She's only born to 25%. They say 20 to 25%. They wanted to take out 15 to 20%. This would leave her with 30 to 5% of her brain. And at first, I've grown up in a world where, and especially in the state of Texas, marijuana is just presented to you as this crazy drug. I think the FDA classifies this as a Schedule 2.
It's a Schedule 1.
Schedule 1, sorry. Which is the same as like heroin and so, you know, when they start talking about the surgery, as much as I hate to admit it, at the time I was very ignorant because I just couldn't consider the possibility of moving here. You know, oh, I was born in Texas. You know, we can't just leave. Like, but as the seizures continued to progress, you know, they kept adding more and more medicine. She's more and more tired, but the seizures are getting worse and worse. You know, to the point where foaming at the mouth, like uncontrollable shaking, not responsive. There's been a couple times where I've had a team of 20 EMTs have to rush in my house and put her on oxygen to revive her because she's blue and she can't breathe because of all the foam coming out. And so, you know, the medicines aren't working. They wanted to do this surgery now. It's weird because I somewhat agree, you know? I'm like, we don't have any time to wait, so maybe that would be best to do it now. But then, you know, the time came when I got the phone call from the doctor saying, okay, let's go ahead and schedule this. And that day, you know, it literally took an hour for me to really realize what was going on. Like, okay, they really want to do this now, and I can't, you know, just couldn't. What kind of life is that for her if she has 5% of a brain? Like, can you imagine what that would feel like? And that's if she makes it through the surgery. You know, there's a 50-50 chance that she doesn't. So the doctors were kind of putting that on me as a mom, pretty much telling me, you know, there's a chance she doesn't come out of this, but you have to trust me. And I don't trust anybody with my daughter's life that much, you know. I wouldn't trust anybody with a, you know, if they say 50-50 chance. I don't even trust myself. You know, as her mom, I wouldn't trust myself doing anything to or for Nova if I knew that there's a 50-50 chance that she wouldn't live through it.
So why did you try cannabis? Why did you want to try cannabis with Nova?
Well, I'm very familiar with cannabis. And, you know, I knew since she was a baby, I heard about kids like Charlotte with Dravet syndrome that were being treated with cannabis. I was never against it. I always knew that it was beneficial for kids like this. What made me want to try it, I mean, we were at the end of our rope. You know, we had no other options. I would have loved to have started her on cannabis when she was a baby, but the state that we're in, or the state that we were in back in Texas, if they, you know, as a mom, one time I had CPS come out to my house because somebody called them and said I was smoking weed, and they tried to take my child away for that. So I couldn't imagine what they would do if, you know, I was giving her the oil there. You know, if they would take her away from me for me smoking, what would they do if they found out I was giving her the oil? You know? So I was never ever opposed to it. We just couldn't do it there in Texas. And so, yeah, moving here was a last option. I don't want that to sound bad. It hasn't been a negative experience, but it was a last option for us.
But tell me, how did you know for sure? I mean, you packed up and came here to Colorado. That's a huge you know, chance there that you took in that. How did you know that cannabis might help your daughter? Because
I'm not going to mention any names, but on my Facebook, I have kind of a network of parents that have children with disabilities, you know, especially seizure activity. And I found out that there was this whole network of moms that couldn't come here to Colorado, but they were doing this for their kids at home, and it was really working. So I had a conversation with one of my friends who has a child with Schizencephaly. He has clefts in his brain, just like my daughter does. A lot of people will sit there and say, oh, cannabis doesn't work for people with a structural problem. Nova doesn't have Dravet's. She has a structural issue, so I'm wasting my time. But of course, when the possibility of us packing up our lives and moving states was presented, that's when I was like, okay, well, if we're going to move, I have to at least know if I am crazy, like everybody's telling me. Is this really going to work? Are we wasting our time? Are we going to uproot our lives and go there and it doesn't work? So I tried it at home. We had 4 days worth. So I gave her through her G-tube. Nothing goes in her mouth, so we have to give everything through the tube. And that same day, they stopped.
The seizures that have been going 24/7 stopped.
They stopped. I thought, I was seeing it happen, but part of me was still skeptical. Is this too good to be true? How is this stuff? How is marijuana, the stuff that I see around me, all the time, just a plant? How is that working when all this medicine hasn't worked? Like, it can't. It's too good to be true, right? Well, we kept giving it to her. At this point, I, of course, was frightened because I'm now taking the risk of the state of Texas coming knocking on my door, taking my daughter. But when you're at the point where we were, when you're watching your child kind of like struggle to breathe, and they can't sit, and they just can't do anything, and there's just a blank stare in their face, you kind of just say, I'm going to take that risk. So we did. At the time, her dad and I weren't living together, so the first 2 days we did it. She was at the house with me. I think I gave her 2 doses a day. And at this time, I didn't have anybody telling me what I was doing. All I had is the stuff, and I was giving it to her. I didn't know if I was giving her too much or too little. I had no idea what I was doing. All I knew is I wanted it to be in her tummy to see if it would work. And it did. I did it for 2 days at my house, and then I talked to her dad about it, and he was all for it too. And I was like, look, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing this little experiment. I'm going to send you home with some of this. Here's how you do it, and I want you to give this to her while she's at your house. So he did as well. It was over a 4-day period. I don't know what to say. It worked. It just did. Like, no medicine that costs hundreds of dollars from a pharmacy with these horrible side effects. Like, this stuff worked for her. Just like nothing else did before. It was crazy. To this day, I still kind of have to sit back and realize, wow, we really did that, and it really did work, and we're not crazy. When you do something like this for your kid, half of the world is out there just thinking that you're some desperate kook. People were skeptical of this, and I don't really understand why, but they are. People will make you feel like you're crazy for doing this for your kid. And me personally, at least I think I'm kind of a realist. I don't believe something unless I see it with my own 2 eyes. And with this I did. It was like seeing a miracle. But it worked. And when we were doing this, I kind of knew the whole time when we were back in Texas that this wasn't something I was willing to do long term in that state. Because I couldn't sleep at night. I felt better because she wasn't having seizures, but I couldn't relax because I felt like at any second, they could come take my child from me, even though I'm doing something to save her life. So, not only did we run out and have to stop giving it to her after 4 days, but I was scared. And, I just wanted to try it to see if it would work. But also, as bad as it sounds, I kind of wanted to see if the seizures were going to come back after we stopped. So I was like, sometimes she will have good days to where she doesn't have a seizure. We don't really see any twitches. So I was like, maybe, just for whatever reason, she's had 4 good days in a row, which has never happened before. But I was like, maybe that's it.
What happened?
We stopped, and they came back just as quick as they left when we started giving her the oil. We had our evidence. That was all I needed to see to know that this was going to work for her, and to know that we weren't wasting our time, and breaking our leases and throwing all our stuff away to come to a new state and risk everything. I had to have some sort of proof before I did that. You know, we're really young, and it can turn out kind of bad if you kind of just leave everything you know and go somewhere new. You know, you can fail. But for me, knowing that she wasn't going to have seizures anymore was enough drive to be like, okay, we're not going to fail no matter what, and we are going.
So now you're here in Colorado.
Yeah, we left on a Saturday night. It was crazy. This all happened so quickly. And you know, when you're doing this, you're kind of on a tight budget, so we didn't really have money for a moving truck. You know, we pretty much had enough to get down here, pay for the first month in our apartment, and then, you know, figure out how to, from then on, sustain our lives financially. But that was just a risk we were willing to take, and that's what we did. We could only take what would fit in our car, and it's like a little Monster Protege. It's a small car, so I had to throw away all my furniture. We had to throw away our clothes. I had to throw away a lot of Nova stuff. We had to leave her hospital bed behind, her feeding tube stand, her bath seat. You know, I had to watch Joseph throw away things that he deeply cared about, you know, a lot of his books. I had to throw away a lot of my art supplies. You know, I'm a painter, and I had to put my paintings next to the dumpster because there wasn't enough room. So, it was hard, you know, but at the same time, it was just so black and white, like, what we had to do. It's scary, but then at the end of the day, it's just so obvious what you have to do for your kid. So yeah, we did it. Yeah.
Don't really know what the future's going to bring, do you?
No, I mean, every day is uncertain, like, you know, with the child with disabilities.
So many people we are already talking with are doing the same thing as you have done, out of desperation, making them move out here.
Mm-hmm.
But did you give any thought to how you were going to be able to afford the medication for Nova?
Honestly, no. Like, my one priority was getting here. You know, I figured that's where it all starts. You have to be there and you have to get there. And that was the hard part, like having to raise the money to get out here. The cost of the medication was the last thing on my mind. I just thought, you know, we get out there and I'll find a way to do it. But we need to be in Colorado, you know. So, yeah, that was the number one priority. It was just getting across the border.
Well, here's hoping that we're going to be able to help you a little.
Yeah, definitely.
Hopefully it'll be a big help.
I really think it will. I think you're buying my daughter some precious time.
You want to look at some of that oil?
I would love to look at some of it.
You can start with this and see where you go with that.
Okay.
I think this is where we start, if that's okay with you.
It is. Just like getting here, you know, getting to the state, that was where we started. This is where we start, you know.